People are strange. Something strange.
Is that strange?
That is strange.
That is strange.
Wow, that is strange. This is strange.
Ashley, welcome to Strange Sauna.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing exceptionally well. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a awesome opportunity, and I love it when I have fellow patrons call in to the show and join me because it gives me an opportunity to do a one-on-one with everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much because I love having a place to come to talk about strange stuff like this. Whenever you try to talk about that with people in your everyday life, they're kind of like, I don't want to be around.
Yeah, that's like me talking to any family member, It's like Thanksgiving rolls around. I'm like, oh, you guys want to learn about Epstein's Island? They're like, shut up. I just want to watch some football, please. You know? So you reached out originally to discuss about sleep paralysis because you mentioned that you have a personal kind of situation with this.
Yes, this is something that I've experienced since around the age of 4 or 5. And it's been very creepy, but also I consider it to be almost like a gift. It's kind of hard to explain, but I do feel that I'm special in some kind of way.
You are special, Ashley. No, I'm like, that's how I've heard of sleep paralysis described as a gift. So you're lucky that you actually can have this ability to kind of astral project, right? Isn't it somewhat along those lines?
Whenever I've been researching it, there are several levels of sleep paralysis that I wasn't even really aware of.
Yeah.
I've actually experienced them, but I didn't know that there was a term for it per se. But yeah, astral projection is one of those, and I've experienced it one time.
Okay.
And you're talking about weird.
I get you. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I would like just to kind of like touch on where you come from. You live in Tennessee right now.
Yes.
When did this start? Did this start at a young age? I mean, did you go through some traumatic event? I mean, if you're okay with talking about so.
Oh, yeah, what I've done is I've made a timeline of all the experiences, so I can just kind of go off of that.
Perfect.
But the first time was about 4 or 5, and I woke up, could not move my body, and I was actually in the bed with my mother, and across the ceiling was, the only way that I can describe it is lightning. And it was just moving across the ceiling. But other than that, just could not move my body. It was actually almost not scary, but peaceful in a way.
Okay.
But I could just see the ceiling. And that was my very first experience.
Okay. And so that was 4 or 5 years old. Now, did you go through any traumatic event like a car accident or anything weird?
No, nothing like that. Which we'll get into it later too, but I was asking my mother just if she had ever experienced this, and she's actually experienced it her whole life, my grandmother and my great-grandmother.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a familial kind of experience.
Yes. And then in the research, I've been kind of tapping into generational curses, which that's a whole nother thing. But
no, I mean, it is a thing. We had Daniel Duvall on this show, and he kind of tapped into that as well, where.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have this curse, like if like your great grandfather was into witchcraft or something, and you had this cursed bloodline, that will cause iniquity in your bloodline, and it will pass down through your DNA. And that's what they're trying to do with the jib jab, supposedly, right? And that's what they're trying to do with your DNA, is they're trying to corrupt it further away from God.
Yeah.
Per Daniel, not putting words in his mouth, but but it is one of those concepts and those ideas that you can actually taint the DNA and your lineage, which is super scary.
Yeah. And if you would have told me this back maybe 5 years ago, I'd have been like, this is insane. This is crazy. But
Yeah.
now with everything that we've learned, I'm like, now I kind of see it. And I'm afraid that's kind of what's happening in my family. But
Okay.
I'll
Well,
research it.
let's dive on. Like, let's get back into this timeline. So that was 4 or 5, right? You were seeing lightning on the ceiling.
Yes. Also, which nothing traumatic ever happened to me, but I was also so very afraid of sleeping by myself. So I'd always sleep with my mom. Um, so a few years, I'm guessing about 6 or 7. I remember laying there. I was in sleep paralysis, but my head, I could see down my hallway, but I could still feel the back of my head on the pillow, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to see. So I think that was a part of the start of astral projection a little bit. Anyway, whenever I could see down the hallway, that's whenever I started seeing shadow figures. And that's whenever it intensified. It became not a very pleasant experience.
Yeah.
But now these shadow figures never interacted with me. It's just that I could see them in the hallway.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
was this before the movie Sixth Sense came out? And Haley Joel
yeah.
Osment said that famous phrase?
When did that come out?
Oh, boy. I don't know.
In the 90s?
Late 90s, I want to say. Maybe early 2000s.
This was the 80s. I'm
I
old.
get you.
So
you were like the first one. They stole the quote from you. I see dead people.
damn it, I could have been a millionaire.
Right? So when you first saw these things, you were what, 7 years old, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
And
around that, maybe 6 or 7.
Okay. Because I've heard that there's different types of sleep paralysis. And one of the ways, well, first of all, they recommend that if you ever find yourself in sleep paralysis, never open your eyes, which is always just a frightening thought. Because they said that like 90% of the time you'll hallucinate. But is it really a hallucination is my question, you know?
Well, that's the thing. Scientific research would show you that it's just some kind of quirk that you have between your REM and your wakeness. But I personally think it's a entity trying to speak to you, kind of a spiritual experience per se.
So these shadow figures, they didn't interact with you back then.
No.
They were basic. What were they doing? Just standing there?
Some would just stand.
Ooh. Sorry, say that again. You kind of broke up there for a second.
Some of them would just stand still, and some of them would pace back and forth in the hallway. Those were the ones that I was so afraid of.
Pace back and forth? Like, so did they have faces or were they just completely shadow?
Black.
Okay.
You know, almost blacker than black.
I get you.
Darker than the darkness that was around.
So would they just absorb the light? Wherever they walked, it would just suck all the light away, just a complete shadow.
Yes. And it was in the shape, it wasn't like a blob or anything. It was in the shape of a human.
I get you.
Or what I would think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen plenty of ghost adventures. Okay. Zach Baggins encountering these black figures, you know, that just kind of walk around.
Yeah.
But, okay. So that's creepy as hell. And you're 7 years old.
Yes. And like I said, I thought that was my first time experiencing somewhat of astral projection because, you know, I couldn't move my body, but I could see down the hallway. So my head had to be lifted up, but I could still feel it on the pillow, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, so describe the bed and the hallway then. So your head, because how could you see down the hallway, I guess?
The bed was facing the doorway to the bedroom, and then the hallway went straight down. So actually, you could see all the way down the hallway into the living room.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so all you had to do is literally just sit up straight out of bed and you're looking straight down the hall.
Yes.
Okay. I get you. Wow.
Yeah. And then, I told you about the shadow people. So during this period of my life, it alternated back and forth. Sometimes I would experience sleep paralysis and it would just be the lightning that was across the ceiling, no dark shadows. But then sometimes I would see no lightning across the ceiling, but just see the black shadows. So it kind of alternated back and forth.
Okay.
And I don't know why it did. You know, nothing, like you said, traumatic happened. You know, I never experienced like any kind of abuse or anything like that. So I don't know why it went back and forth between being pretty scary seeing these figures and then not so scary.
Okay. Did any of them ever try to reach out to you or contact you during that time?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And so you're still around 7, going on 10.
Yeah. Now this next story, this is where it increases.
Mm-mm.
So at the age of 8, it's when my mom was like, look, you got to start sleeping in your own room. You're too old for this shit. So I was about 8, and I'm assuming it was early in the morning, but I remember laying there. I was in the sleep paralysis, and I felt my arms go up over my head without me doing it. And so then once they got up over my head, I started feeling like I was being drifted off the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm trying to scream for my mother, and I can't. But once I started feeling myself slip completely off of the bed, that's whenever I hit the floor, the sleep paralysis broke. I had knocked over my lamp, my nightstand, everything.
Wow.
Yeah. Which now I did not see anything at this point. I could just feel pressure on my hands and then being pulled.
Okay. So were you afraid the entire time? Was fear
Yes.
part of this?
I was
Okay.
trying to scream and I couldn't.
Yeah, that's also something that I've heard is that they attack fear, or if you have a fear state, and that's why it's typically associated with trauma. Like if you've had trauma in your life that caused some sort of traumatic event where you're fearful, or it raised or heightened the level of fear in your body, it typically would revert back to that moment and attach to that point. And that is where, like the adrenochrome type of thing, Monsters Inc., where they kind of attach to the fear and they raise, because they feed off of the fear, apparently,
Well,
these entities.
I tell you, they could have gotten a lot of adrenochrome from me at that moment.
Well, there you go.
I can just remember feeling, and whenever I woke up, I was trembling.
So what did your parents think about this?
Okay, my parents, I told you that my mom has experienced this. Of course, she just made this known to me. Because as a child, she was like, it's just a dream. Go back to sleep. You're fine. All that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Also, they said that, I was too much into like scary horror movie stuff.
Were you though?
So, I mean, mom would never let me watch scary movies, but now, of course, like I read scary stories and stuff like that.
I get you. Okay. See, so maybe there was some implantation of the fear, I don't know.
Exactly. And that's why.
But like your mom went through this. So wouldn't she like offer some advice instead of it's just a dream? Like here's some things that you can do.
She just told me this recently, since I told her that I was going to be speaking with you. She's like, oh yeah, I've experienced that. I'm like, well, I wish you could have told me before now. But so at that time she didn't offer me any type of advice. It was more just brush it off.
Well, is it because she didn't want to admit it herself? Like she was trying to kind of squash down her own experiences?
Maybe, and that's the typical theme in my family. You try to squash down everything, kind of hide it, and push it away.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, a lot of like the boomer generation is like
Yeah.
that. I mean, my parents are like that. If you have a problem, you kind of just keep it to yourself, man up, and
Yeah.
pull up your boots and
Suck
take it
it
on.
up and go on.
Yeah. So did she kind of open up and describe the events that she went through as well?
She said that she actually experienced sleep paralysis for the first time whenever she was in her 20s. I was born. So she said that it was during the middle of the day. She actually thought she had had a stroke because she just couldn't move her body, but she could see me. But then
Wow.
she snapped out of it. And back then we didn't have this term sleep paralysis that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what this was until when that documentary came out, Nightmare. Did you get to watch that?
I did not know.
It's pretty good.
So when did that come out though?
2015, I think.
Okay. So you didn't know about this until then?
Yeah, I had no idea that this was a thing.
Okay.
I just
Jeez,
thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah. Did you ever go to a sleep doctor, or did your parents ever kind of, well, I mean, probably not, because they kind of just squashed it down and told you to forget it, right?
Yeah, and also because I've heard of people like seeing someone in sleep paralysis. My mother told me that she never experienced seeing me in that state or whatever. So,
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like seeing is believing, so she never saw it. So she's probably just like, oh, it's all in your head. You're a kid.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a dumb kid. I'm not going to believe you.
I get you.
Okay, let's see here. I told you about the being pulled off my bed. That was up to that point the most intense. Then it progressed to sleepwalking.
Okay.
So I would just wake up and it would be in the middle of the night in my living room, just sitting in the middle of the floor,
Mm.
Having no idea how I got there, anything. Sometimes I would be in the kitchen. Sometimes I would be on the table. It was very strange.
Okay. And did you do any harm to yourself in that, or were you just like, it was just all just very innocent? You just would wake up in a different location.
I've woke up with bruises before during that time, but I didn't hurt myself to where I was aware of it.
Okay.
Okay. Whenever I was 10, I moved. It was still on our land, but we built a new house and everything. And it started back to where I was just seeing the lightning kind of on the ceiling.
Mhm.
Nothing major happened up to this point. And I went through till about the age of 15. So about from 10 to 15, it was just waking up, couldn't move my body, seeing lights on the ceiling.
Now, how often would this happen?
I would say probably once a month since
Okay.
the age of 4.
And so it still happens around the same cadence once a month right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I will say, whenever my daughter was born, she didn't sleep a lot. So I didn't sleep a lot. So I probably went a couple of years without having it.
Okay.
But once she started sleeping better, it came right back.
I get you. Now, did you try any like melatonin? I know this sounds dumb, but like any like sleep medication or anything like that?
Not whenever I was a child. Probably around the age of 30 is whenever I got to where I couldn't sleep well, which I'll talk about it later because
Okay.
I had some stuff happen.
Gotcha.
But that was my first time using melatonin.
Okay.
And I never had any type of like medication for sleep or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Around the age of 16, I had woke up, which I didn't have my eyes open, but I woke up feeling something on my fingertips.
Mm.
And whenever I opened my eyes, the ceiling was near my face, but I could see my hands out in front of me and my fingertips touching the ceiling.
Okay.
Whenever I kind of realized what was happening, which I think was me kind of floating off of the bed. I know this sounds insane, but it was like something took my body and slammed it back into the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I was back into my bed, that's whenever I was out of sleep paralysis. I could move my arms. I jumped up out of the bed.
Well, you hear that from people that have near-death experiences all the time, is when they went back into their body, they just slammed back into their body. Like they were thrown or they fell from heaven or wherever they were.
Yeah.
And then, they just slammed back in and woke up. And there they were again.
Dang. Well, like I said, I was just asleep in my bed. And, I don't know if it was just a very vivid dream, but I could just feel my fingertips hitting the ceiling and then having the feeling of being slammed back into the bed.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I did not go back to sleep then.
Oh, yeah. I could
That
imagine.
one really freaked me out.
And that was at 16, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
16 years old. Also during that time, which giving sermons in my church,
Mm-hmm.
they'd have this thing called like a youth Sunday. Somehow I was always the preacher. And so I don't know if that has any correlation with it, but that's all happened in the same time. Then from the age of 16 to my 30s, I had developed an eating disorder. And this was whenever things started really ramping up for me. I would be in sleep paralysis, and then I would start hearing whispering around me, saying my name.
Mm-hmm.
Threats of or hearing people talk saying that they were going to kill me.
Yeah.
Creepy crap like that. So,
I mean, that happened to one of my friends back in the day. He was sleeping on this couch and he heard "I'm going to kill you" whispered into his ear, and he woke. And he was a fighter, so he would wake up ready to brawl.
Yeah.
And he woke up and he just ran around the house looking for the guy. He's like, "Where the fuck are you?" And there was no one there. So,
oh gosh,
I don't know if it ever happened to him again, but yeah, it's crazy when you hear voices. And now he was later on in life, he was kind of paranoid. I don't want to say to the point of schizophrenia, but he drank a lot to kind of deal with his problems. And so I don't know if it was something that he kind of brought on himself with drugs and whatnot.
Well, see, and that's why I mentioned the eating disorder stuff, is because was that just the voices that I was hearing? Because it was more like they were talking back and forth, saying we're going to kill her, things like that. So you wonder if was I in kind of a depressed state and it manifested in me hearing this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand mental illness all that great, but I think it is good to look at both sides of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think your mind's very powerful and it can definitely make you think things that are there, but they're not.
Well, now, did you ever see the movie Insidious?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
So essentially, I mean, just to describe it to the listeners, is that you had this boy who had this out-of-body experience. He was astral projecting, and then he got lost. And when he was lost, you had a bunch of the fourth-dimensional beings, or the people without bodies, vying and fighting for his body. And there was like a time period, and they said you have to wait a certain amount of time before his body is good to go. And then it's anybody's game. Like then they would just battle it out to see who could inhabit the boy's body. And now the objective was for the father to realize this, astral project himself into the area where the boy is and go rescue him from that realm and bring him back to his own body. Right?
Okay.
And so when
I've
you're
seen that movie.
when you're astral projecting and you're seeing these beings and they're talking about killing you, maybe it's because they want to inhabit your body.
Oh shit.
You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I only think they can do that if you allow them to do that. You know what I mean? Like as far as like I don't think that they're that strong. I think that they're not as strong as like your individual consciousness. That's what I've heard, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any way to prove that.
And personally, like what I think that I have been dealing with is more of on a spiritual level, like demonic entities and stuff like that. And I think that's been to, somewhat hinder the work that I'm supposed to do in my life, is personally what I think. Now, there's some people that could go through sleep paralysis that experience it for completely different reasons, I think.
So yours is more of a displeasure and more of like a painful experience?
Well, not all the time. I mean, I do feel that, like whenever I was seeing the lightning across the sky and whatnot, that became almost pleasant to me.
Mm-hmm.
But now, anytime that I would see something, hear something, that's whenever it became, intense and something that I did not want to experience at all.
I get you.
Yeah. But the reason that I do feel that I have experienced this or even have sleep paralysis is because, and I don't want this to sound crazy, but kind of like evil trying to stop me personally.
Okay. So what leads you to believe that?
Well, I am Christian, and this time in my life, especially whenever it was at an increased rate, see how to explain this. It hindered me. For one thing, I thought I was going insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who experiences this? Like, hearing voices, you do think of schizophrenia, like I have some kind of mental illness. So it stopped me from interacting with people a lot, especially whenever it came to sensitive subjects like religion and spirituality, to where I probably could have maybe helped a person. But instead I would just kind of lock that away, and I didn't want to deal with it.
Did you notice a correlation between the more you were trying to help people through your faith, the more you would increasingly have these events happen at night?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that would probably lead you to be like, okay, so the more I am involved as a pastor at my church, the more I'm trying to help people along their path to Christianity, the more I'm going to suffer through my sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, and I know this sounds, I guess, like a weak Christian, but I didn't want to deal with it. So
who would? Especially that young. I mean, you were still, 16 at this time? Or were you talking about as you grew older as well?
Yeah. 16 was whenever the activity really increased. So at that time, I was just like, screw this, man, I can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. And now going on the timeline, are there any other points to hit on?
Okay. At the age of 30, I had suffered a miscarriage. And I got very, very depressed, very bitter. it was probably one of the most traumatizing things that I've ever experienced in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had went through, it was probably a couple of months of just heartache. And I had went to sleep, fell into sleep paralysis. And this is whenever I felt pressure on my chest, like something was crushing me.
Yeah.
Felt like hands were coming around my neck. And I heard the word die.
Okay.
Well, I couldn't scream. I couldn't do nothing. I just, in my head, started praying. It's like, in Jesus' name, please leave me. Help me, God. Stuff like that. It eventually did leave, but it took it a little while. I would say probably the span of about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Because I know that people say that once you say Jesus's name, it instantly goes away. Well, that wasn't my experience that night. So whenever I finally could get out of the sleep paralysis, I cried and gasped for air because I legit felt like I could not breathe.
Okay.
Well, then about a week later, I had experienced it again. And this time it was doing the same thing. On my chest, hands around my neck, saying die. Well, I knew that I couldn't verbally say anything, so I just began to think and pray. I just said no in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this jolt came off of me. So from my chest, but I still had hands around my neck, or the feeling of it. And then I said, or I thought no again. And I said, in Jesus' name, leave me. And it left instantly that time.
Wow.
And then I never experienced the suffocation part again.
Okay. So you found some real power in Jesus there.
Yes. During the second experience.
Okay. Now, let me ask, did you ever try before this, like, different techniques to help you wake up from the actual paralysis? Because I've heard, like, wiggling your toes, and then there's something else with, like, your fingers, or trying to roll your body. And if you roll your body physically, then you can kind of wake yourself out of it.
Yeah, I never found anything that could help. I would feel as though I was rolling or trying to, but it never would snap me out of it.
Okay.
It was all of my sleep paralysis experiences that I just have to lay there till it's done. Gotcha.
Okay. And then, so around 30, you were saying that these almost, they sound like they're almost demonic then. They were trying to suffocate you, or they're saying die, and then
and
you
voice,
rebuke them in the name of the Lord, right?
Yes. And the voice, it's one that I can't even mimic, but it's dark and deep. And basically what you would see on like a horror movie, how like a demon would sound or whatever.
Okay. Like a growl or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
just
my goodness.
Deep, guttural.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, that's no bueno, Ashley. That's no bueno.
Now, whenever I was telling you that when I was younger, I would experience hearing, like two people talking, saying, let's kill her, or we need to let her die, or whatever. It was normal voices, like just like two dudes talking.
Okay.
But during this experience, it was a guttural, deep, nightmarish voice.
Let me ask, so have you heard any of the normal voices again, or?
No, I haven't.
So do you think that those normal voices, I guess, morphed into this demonic kind of state because of being in that situation for so long, that they became more evil as they progressed in that dimension? Or do you think that this is a completely like separate entity?
I think it was me becoming aware of what I do think it was the same entity, but me just growing up and kind of figuring out that this is demonic that I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe back whenever I was young, they was trying to kind of disguise themselves.
Yeah.
And then as I progressed on and became more aware, they couldn't hide their true voice.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, do you think this is an attachment?
God, I hope not.
Because,
But
yeah, typically that would be, I mean, if it is in the DNA, I mean, because did your mom ever have like instances like this? Did you ever ask her about voices and demonic stuff?
no, she has heard voices, but not um deep, like guttural what I heard. However, my mother has seen things even out of sleep paralysis that, well, what she would describe to you as demonic entities.
Okay.
So it could very well be something that's attached. And I was telling you before, like the generational curse stuff. See, I need to dig a little bit deeper into my great grandmother, what all she experienced. My grandmother, see, when at a young age, she was abused.
Okay.
And I think that's when all that started for her.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's what Daniel was also saying, is that the abuse, like sexual abuse, is one way to cause the greatest amount of iniquity in children. And that's why it's so rampant, is because, with these different kind of devilish beliefs, or who the hell knows what kind of belief this is, but you taint the DNA to get them further away from God, and you do that by these continual ritualistic abuses through their generations. And I mean, it's not, I don't want to say all children that are molested become molesters, but I mean, it's pretty damn high. And I think that they know that, and that's something that's gripped on them. Mm-hmm. That it's almost like a demon seed that spawns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that it's definitely like something that has tainted your bloodline by any means, but you should definitely check out Daniel Duvall and listen to some of his lectures and whatnot, because he actually has specific prayers for iniquity in your bloodline. And he's like, he's like, I wish I would have known about this, because he had like similar issues. Yeah. And he was kind of shown what to say, because you actually have to say it, just like you said, no, in the name of Jesus, get off me. And then it just relinquished. He was like, I have, he doesn't call them patients, but they're like just people that he talks to, because he's I think he's a pastor as well. Okay. And
did you tell me that you've spoken with him?
Yeah, he's on an episode of Strange Sauna, I think.
Oh, okay.
4 or 5 or something back then. So go check that out. And then, definitely reach out to him, because there's people that are going through the same thing that you're talking about, that he's dealt with, where they will do something, they'll rebuke the demon, whatever, in the name of the Lord, and they're fine for a day or so, and then a month later it happens again. And then it's just a continual thing where he's like, you have to say the prayers, and he has a set of them for just different circumstances. Mm-hmm. Because it's the way that he stated it was like a legal binding contract with these demonic forces. And that's how they look at you. They look at you as like you are property. Like I own this now because it's part of my lineage and all this stuff, right? And if you have to be very specific in what you say in order to end that contract. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, it is. And like growing up in the church, they never talk to you about this stuff.
Yeah. And you wonder why. But I mean, apparently he's helped a lot of different people. So definitely check him out.
Yeah. Heck
so,
yeah.
so after the age of 30, did you have any other incidents like this?
Well, like I said, I experience it probably once a month.
But not
After,
like with the demon voice once a month?
no,
Okay.
just general sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the last time that I actually ever had something come up in my face, choking me, telling me that I was going to die. But I said, whenever I said no and in Jesus' name, I did it with authority, I guess, that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I never experienced that again.
Okay. That's good.
The only thing, and I had told you, I think I told y'all this on a live or something, but about me experiencing with my grandfather that sleep paralysis experience where I had actually went into a deep sleep. I saw him. It was dark, and he was waving his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I woke up, I was in sleep paralysis, but I got out of it rather quickly. And then my mother called and said that my grandfather almost died. He went into anaphylactic shock.
Mm.
So, yeah, that I felt that was.
So at the time he was going through the shock, he was trying to communicate with you.
Well, and I asked, I was like, what time was this at? And it was around the same time that I had fell into this deep sleep on the couch and experienced probably around, seemed like a minute of sleep paralysis.
Yeah. Yeah, the same thing happened with Big Ron. I don't know if you recall, but I think this was part of the conversation too. But Big Ron, one of his best friend's son was hit over the head with a beer bottle and fell into a river or a lake, and he was drowning. And as he was drowning, he was looking up through the water because he was describing this event later because he was saved, obviously. But when he was like drowning, he remembers looking up and seeing like the moon light and seeing like the moon through the water, as you're underneath water and you're just kind of like floating back. And at that same time, Big Ron had a dream that he was drowning, and then he just like woke up at the exact same time. He's like, something's not right. And he was like telling his wife, like, I don't know what's going on, but something doesn't feel right now. And then the next morning he got the call from his friend. And then, he found out all of these details, and he's like, I had a dream about Derek. Derek was the son's name, about him drowning. And I could see what he described. Because Ron had that dream where he was seeing what Derek was seeing as he was drowning.
Yeah.
So, very bizarre.
And because I've listened to Big Ron. I really like him, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
But so does he consider himself kind of like a sensitive? He can take on like the feelings of other people and stuff like that.
You know what? Like an empath?
Yeah.
Not really. I think some people have came up to him telling him that they were told that they needed to talk to him and they don't know why.
Wow.
And so he's met people that have just randomly come up and being like, I don't know who you are, but I was told that I have to talk to you. And he's like, and he has no idea what this means or what's going on. But, he's like, I'm trying to help people, and he teaches people, and he talks to people as a trainer. He's more of like a psychiatrist, if you will. And he basically just listens to people talk and offers advice.
Yeah.
While he's training them. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know. And he saw that alien experience or the UFO or whatever, the bright light come down to him. He said ever since then, it's just been like this world isn't what we thought it was,
Wow. That's insane.
Okay. Well, so as far as like your sleep paralysis stuff goes, are you still dealing with it, and any other weird stories going on?
Yes. So I told you that I experience it probably once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's still like I'm seeing that light across the ceiling. Now there has been a few times after the grandfather that I had that near death experience dream. After he passed away, it was about 4 months. I think I might have told this too on a call-in show, but I was in sleep paralysis. I had a dream about him that like we hugged and I felt like I could really feel him. And when I woke up, it's like I could smell him.
Oh, yeah.
And when I looked in the corner, he was standing there.
Mm.
And I was out of sleep paralysis whenever I saw him. Of course, it was just for like a fraction of a second that I saw him. Also, where I had such an intense dream, maybe I just wanted to see him, but it sure felt real, is all I can say.
That actually happened after my grandma died. I want to say it was like a couple weeks after she died. My sister came into my room because I still lived at my mom's house at the time. This was when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15 or something. And she's like, I smell, Mammo was her name. Because we would, we couldn't say grandma when we were young. So we'd be like, Mammo. I don't know. But she's like, I smelled Mammo's perfume. And then like I would walk into her room and I was like, yeah, I smell it too. And it's like this weird, you have no idea where the hell this comes from. Because obviously no one has this perfume, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just bizarre. Like all of a sudden your olfactory nerves or whatever just open up and
yeah.
And they say that scent is one of the best, well, I guess senses that is tied to memory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know what I mean? So like when you smell something, it can take you back to a specific time. Like a stupid example is when I was in college, I used to always use this one dish soap. And my wife just bought it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this like brings me back to college days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, it's just like one of those things where, sometimes she'll wear this perfume that she used to wear when we like first started dating. And I'll be like, oh, wow, this like, brings me back to.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where when you have someone who dies in your family and then all of a sudden you smell what they smelled like, or you're smelling what they used to smell like.
Yeah.
Something tells me that might be like a visitation of some sort, or they just want to let you know that they're there and either thinking about you or they're kind of there with you in that moment.
Yeah. And see, I've went back and forth too, because I don't even know what I believe about, obviously I believe that someone who is a Christian and saved, when they die, they obviously go to heaven. But to like come back and visit, I don't even know how I feel about that. But I just know for that experience that I had, I mean, it smelled exactly like him. I could see him vividly over in the corner. But then I go back and forth is like, am I being tricked? Or like, is this a way for demonic entities to try to weasel their way back in?
Mm-hmm.
Is what I fear.
Yeah. Well, was it like, was your grandfather trying to get you to do something, or was he just?
No, just standing there.
Yeah.
Like smiling at me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think that would be a trick. I mean, because typically if something was trying to trick you, it would try to trick you into doing something for that entity. You know what I mean? Like they would want you to perform an action or not to perform an action. And, like those, when you were having these demonic kind of sleep paralysis episodes.
True.
It deterred you from doing anything related to your faith. So maybe that's another thing. But like to show up as your grandpa, I think that would be a good thing,
Yeah. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like feelings, you weren't afraid, were you?
Oh, no, I was not afraid at all. Now, I will say when I came out of the sleep paralysis, I did feel a touch creeped out because, I mean, this person is dead.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was able to go right back to sleep and I felt fine. So.
Okay.
Um, all right. Okay. So now I've moved back into my grandfather's house that he passed away in. Also, my grandmother passed away here. And I had not experienced any major sleep paralysis till about, it was 9 months after we moved in. So this has probably been about 6 months ago. I was in sleep paralysis, except this time I was on my side. So it was just like I was looking at the room,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard what sounded like my grandfather's voice in my ear say Ashley. And whenever he said that, I was out of the sleep paralysis.
Mm.
And like, I didn't feel, it did creep me out a little bit just because I wasn't expecting anything like that. But
So how long ago did he die?
he died in 2017, the day of
Okay.
that eclipse. Do you remember that big eclipse that happened?
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
he died on
that
that day? Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
I know.
Oh, no. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or like, I know Trump was born on freaking, blood moon.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, out of all the days, what whew.
But hey, that was totally him because he liked to upstage anyone and everything. So, of course, he would die on that day.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, yeah, and then so it's essentially after he passed, and I'm assuming your grandmother had already gone.
She passed away in 2018, a year after him.
Okay. And then after the arrangements were met and all this stuff, you guys moved into his house?
Yeah, my father, it was just sitting here, and he's the one that owns it now. And he was like, y'all could live here if you wanted to for free. So,
Okay.
like, heck yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
So did your grandparents die in the house?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and now,
Yeah, I was with both of them whenever they did pass.
okay. So that could be some lingering, I'm not saying ghosts or like, but
Yeah.
that could have some sort of lingering, effects there.
Energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, if it bugs you, you could always just tell him or ask him to leave. Be like, Grandpa, I love you, but quit doing this. You know what I mean?
The thing is, though, like, the experiences that I've had with this, even though like the whispering in my ear, that did startle me, but I don't know if they are here. That's something I'd like them to stay.
Yeah.
It doesn't frighten me in any kind of way.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, there's some comforting facts to it, and it's not, I guess not facts, but comforting feelings that you can get from it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'd be like, when I want my privacy, grandparents, stay out of the house, please. But yeah, okay. So is that pretty much your story in a nutshell?
Yep.
Right
That's
on.
it.
So yeah, I would definitely, it sounds like you haven't had any bad experiences for a little bit, at least, right?
Since about 30.
Okay. So that's good. And like, as long as it's not like a problem for you, are you still like sleepwalking?
No, not that I know of. Like, I don't wake up in different spots.
Okay. So you did mention something about melatonin. Did you try melatonin? Was it bad? Like a bad experience?
No, but I had recently just read that you could take an increased amount of melatonin and it can possibly slip you into sleep paralysis or astral projection or something like that. I tried it I experimented with it for this podcast.
Yeah.
And I just woke up really groggy.
Yeah. I was going to say that's all I've ever had. I mean, I bite the things in like quarter bites. Like if it's like a 5 milligram, I only take like a little nibble of it. Cause like,
okay,
I've
well,
heard
listen, I took 30.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So that is a lot.
I did not experience sleep paralysis, and the next day I was hungover.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's awesome. You experimented on yourself for this show. I love that.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Well, yeah, I just want to thank you again for being on the show and sharing this, because this was awesome. I love talking to you.
I appreciate it, and thank you for making a space for people who have strange, weird things to talk about, that we can actually get it out. I
Hell
appreciate
yes.
it.
Yeah, I appreciate you showing up. And then, yeah, we do have our call-in show tonight, so hopefully you can make that as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody out there, if you want to be on the show as well, just hit me up, leave a comment on this link, and let me know, if you want to talk about whatever. So I'm always open. And yeah, Ashlee, again, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.